Ethan Carter had barely settled into his new house when the first sign of trouble arrived. It was a bright morning, the kind where the air felt crisp and clean, perfect for working on his beloved 1968 Mustang. But instead of peace, he found a crisp, white envelope stuck to his front door, stamped with the official seal of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, HOA. Curious, he tore it open, expecting maybe a community welcome letter or a notice about garbage collection schedules. Instead, his eyebrows shot up. Violation notice, unauthorized vehicle parking. Fine, $5. Payment due immediately. Ethan blinked. $5,000? For what? His eyes darted over the legal jargon until the exact offense popped out. Vehicles must be parked inside the garage at all times. Driveway parking is strictly prohibited. He let out a short, incredulous laugh. You've got to be kidding me. Leaning against the doorframe, he glanced toward his driveway. There sat his pride and joy, his vintage Mustang, gleaming under the morning sun. It was more than a car. It was a project he had spent years rebuilding from scratch. And now, apparently, it was a crime to let it sit in his own driveway. The amusement didn't last long. A sharp, deliberate knock at the door made him turn. Standing there, arms crossed and an all-too-practiced smirk stretched across her face, was a middle-aged woman with a razor-sharp bob haircut and a clipboard tucked under her arm. She radiated the kind of authority people didn't question unless they really want to fight. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said, her voice dripping with fake politeness. "I assume you've read the notice?" Ethan kept his tone even, though irritation bubbled beneath the surface. "Yeah, I just saw it. There must be some mistake." "No mistake," she replied, her smile widening. "I'm Linda Hamilton, president of the Oak Ridge Estates HOA. Your vehicle violates the HOA regulations." Ethan scoffed. "It's in my own driveway." She nodded, clearly waiting for that exact response. "Exactly. Per HOA Rule 14b, driveways are not designated parking spaces. All vehicles must be stored inside garages to maintain the community's uniform aesthetic. You're saying my car is ruining the aesthetic?" Ethan gestured toward the Mustang, which gleamed like it belonged in a car show, not hidden away. Linda's gaze flickered toward the car, a flash of disdain crossing her face. "We have standards, Mr. Carter. This neighborhood values order. I'd hate for you to start off on the wrong foot." Ethan folded his arms. "So, let me get this straight. I parked my car in my own driveway, and that cost me $5,000? Her smile never faltered. "It's a deterrent. We take infractions very seriously." He clenched his jaw. He'd worked in real estate long enough to know petty bureaucracy when he saw it. But this was something else. "And if I don't pay?" Linda's eyes glinted. "The fine increases. And if you continue to disregard HOA rules, we have the authority to place a lien on your home." "For parking in my own driveway," Ethan muttered. "For breaking the rules," she corrected sharply. The sheer absurdity of it almost made him laugh. Almost. But the smug twist of Linda's mouth killed any trace of humor. "Well, that's not happening," he said firmly. Linda tilted her head, amused by his defiance. "I do hope you reconsider. It's a lovely neighborhood. I'd hate for things to get complicated." She spun on her heel and strode away, her heels clicking on the pavement. Ethan watched her go, his mind racing. He'd heard horror stories about HOAs, ridiculous fines, overreaching control, neighbors living in fear, but he never thought he'd be living in one of those stories. Until now. "Welcome to the neighborhood," a gruff voice said from the side. Ethan turned to see an elderly man in faded jeans and a baseball cap watering his front lawn. "She got you already?" "Huh," the man chuckled. "Apparently," Ethan replied, waving the violation notice. "Name's Hank," the man said, walking over. "And yep, that's Linda for you. Got me the first week I moved in. Said my truck was an eyesore. You got two options. Fight it and drown in fines, or pay up and play nice. No third option?" Hank chuckled dryly. "Not unless you plan on buying the whole damn neighborhood." Ethan laughed, but Hank's words stuck with him. By the next morning, the war had begun. The HOA nightmare intensifies. When Ethan checked his mailbox the next day, another violation letter awaited him. Unauthorized mailbox color. Fine, $500. Apparently, the previous homeowner had painted the mailbox an off-white that didn't match the HOA's approved shade. The following day, another fine arrived. Grass half an inch too long. Fine, $1,000. By the end of the week, he was staring at over $10,000 in fines, and the list kept growing. Every call to the HOA office led to dead ends. Phone calls mysteriously disconnected, emails ignored, and every appeal caught in a web of bureaucratic nonsense. Linda paraded past his house daily, a smug smile on her face, always tossing a snide remark over her shoulder. You know, Mr. Carter, this could all go away if you just followed the rules. The final straw came one morning when Ethan stepped outside, and his Mustang was gone. Panic surged. He checked for signs of theft, but then spotted the HOA's towing notice nailed to a nearby lamppost. He called the number listed. Yeah, we've got it, the disinterested tow company rep told him. HOA orders. Fees $3,000. Ethan's grip tightened around his phone. You've got to be kidding me. Nope. Pay up, or it stays an impound. Ethan hung up, his jaw tight. Enough was enough. Turning the tables. Ethan wasn't about to back down. If Linda wanted a war, she was going to get one. He wasn't some clueless homeowner. He'd worked in real estate finance for over a decade. He understood how the system worked. HOAs at their core were just businesses. And like any business, they had vulnerabilities. He spent the next few nights digging through public records, hunting for leverage. It didn't take long to find it. The Oak Ridge Estates HOA wasn't just a random neighborhood board. It was managed by a larger real estate investment firm, Maplewood Holdings, and Maplewood was drowning in debt. For years, the company had used predatory fines and legal loopholes to squeeze homeowners dry, barely staying afloat in the process. Their entire business model depended on these HOA fees. And Ethan had just found their Achilles heel. The master plan. Step 1. Buy the HOA debt. Ethan used his network of real estate contacts to quietly purchase outstanding HOA debts from multiple homeowners. Most people didn't realize that unpaid HOA fines could be sold off to third-party investors, just like unpaid medical bills. By the end of the week, Ethan owned a significant chunk of the HOA's debts, making him its largest creditor. Step 2. Control the parent company. Next, he targeted Maplewood Holdings. The firm was struggling, its stock tanking. Through a series of strategic investments, made through shell companies to avoid detection, Ethan acquired enough shares to gain a controlling interest. Within 2 weeks, he didn't just own a piece of the HOA. He owned the whole damn thing. Step 3. Fire Linda Hamilton. The next HOA meeting was supposed to be another dull gathering where Linda would gleefully announce more fines and fees. Instead, it became her downfall. The room buzzed with the usual murmurs as Linda strutted to the podium. Good evening, everyone, she began, that same smug smile in place. As you all know, we have strict community standards to maintain. Actually, Ethan interrupted, standing up. I think there's been a slight change in management. Linda's face twisted in irritation. Mr. Carter, this is an official HOA meeting. You don't have the floor. Ethan smiled as he pulled out a thick file and dropped it onto the table with a loud thud. Oh, I think I do. What's this? She snapped. Your walking papers. Gasps echoed through the room as he revealed the documents, proof of his controlling interest in Maplewood Holdings. I own the HOA now, Linda, Ethan said, relishing the horror dawning on her face. And you're fired. The room erupted. Cheers, laughter, a few stunned silences, but no one defended Linda. You can't do this, she shrieked. I can, and I did. He handed her a termination notice and, for good measure, announced, Oh, and the HOA? It's dissolved. Effective immediately. The clubhouse exploded in applause. Victory and poetic justice. The aftermath was glorious. Ethan refunded every unfair fine the HOA had issued. He bulldozed the cold, soulless HOA office and replaced it with a community park. His Mustang? back in the driveway, this time parked proudly on a freshly painted neon blue driveway, just to make a point. Linda? Oh, Karma wasn't done with her yet. Months later, Ethan received an email from a homeowner in another state. Subject: "You're not going to believe this." Attached was a screenshot. Violation notice, fine, $5,000. Offense: parking in her own driveway. Linda had moved into another HOA-controlled neighborhood and got slapped with the exact same fine she once doled out. Ethan nearly spit out his coffee laughing. He forwarded the email to Hank, who responded with 3 words. Karma's a beast. The neighborhood thrived. Without the HOA's iron grip, homeowners had the freedom to make real improvements. Property values didn't crash. In fact, they skyrocketed. And Ethan? He sat on his porch, coffee in hand, Mustang gleaming in the sun, knowing he'd done something no one else dared to do. He bought the HOA and fired the queen.